We reside on a quiet dead-end street just beyond Charlotte, in one of those tidy communities where the mailboxes are uniform and the homeowners association bulletin overflows with excessive enthusiasm. Our home is a two-level place featuring a porch rocker that I promised we'd enjoy each sunset, only to rarely follow through amid the chaos of school assignments, forgotten sports gear, and poultry that defrosts at the 11th hour. Thursdays bring the aroma of grilled meats and fabric softener wafting through the block. Fridays dawn with bins lined up curbside in a melancholy procession. The week my spouse hit 40, the atmosphere carried a damp, heavy scent, while the magnolias scattered their fragrance like festive sprinkles. I'd mapped out a simple celebration, an intimate meal indoors with the children, his preferred bourbon-infused chocolate dessert, my mom's handed-down formula, forever slightly off-kilter, plus a pile of handmade greetings adorned with wobbly hearts and doodled figures. No babysitter reserved, finances were stretched thin from swimming classes, childcare fees, and that persistent upstairs plumbing issue resurfacing like an unwelcome specter. Still, I'd pressed a linen cloth for the table, and the kids had rehearsed their birthday tune without squabbling over the dance steps. It seemed sufficient. He arrived from the commuter rail in his navy attire, the one that accentuates his frame's width. His job in uptown banking involves a sleek workspace of transparent partitions, an ID dangling from a cord, and data flickering across monitors. The youngsters rushed him at the entrance, clinging to his midsection, the 4-year-old's ringlets plastered to his brow from perspiration. He planted kisses on their crowns and offered me a weary grin. "It smells incredible," he remarked, easing his necktie. "You really didn't need to go to this trouble." "But I wanted to," I replied sincerely. "Happy birthday." We dined using the fine china. The 7-year-old shared a rehearsed quip, botching the twist, yet we chuckled regardless. The youngest treated the salt shaker like a treasured artifact when handing it over. As we savored the cake, a subtle whiskey warmth lingered on my palate, and I reflected, this evening is solid. Nothing extravagant or social media worthy, just quality time. Post-bedtime routines involved multiple potty runs, 2, then 3, plus a final water request, and a tantrum about a lost plush toy. Eventually, we aligned at the counter. He handled the drying. I scrubbed. The pane above captured a sliver of darkness and our mirrored images, warm yet everyday and faintly ethereal. He placed a dish aside, coughed lightly, and ventured in a light tone. "Mind if I pose a question without you flipping out?" "Depends what it is," I answered, brushing suds from my finger. His gaze met mine, then dropped to the cloth he clutched. "A get-out-of-jail-free card," he stated. "For my special day?" I chuckled, set to rib him over the awkward punchline, but he stayed solemn. "I'm dead serious," he added hastily, phrases tumbling forth. "Only one occasion, nothing more. It wouldn't signify." He scanned the overhead for the right term. "It wouldn't carry weight. Maybe it could, invigorate us. It's common among men. A trend." He uttered it as if selecting a seasonal menu item. I lowered the dish with deliberate care, my fingers numbed and unreliable. "You seek approval to be intimate with another person," I echoed, confirming we'd grasped the identical declaration. "Only once, a hall pass," he reiterated. "We've shared a decade. I'm approaching 40. I adore you. Our household means everything. It's just..." He shrugged in defeat. "I'm antsy." The appliance droned like a far-off aircraft. An overlooked timepiece suddenly chimed insistently. A wave of absurd dismay washed over me, the kind that's utterly devoid of mirth. "No way," I declared. "Not even close." He inhaled deeply, as if bracing for an icy dip. I suspected that response. He attempted a grin that faltered. Still, I thought voicing it wouldn't sting. "It does," I countered. "The mere suggestion wounds." Genuine bewilderment crossed his face, somehow more painful than intent harm. We could establish boundaries, he suggested. No feelings involved purely. He waved his digits vaguely, as though the forbidden concept might materialize. I'm not claiming our bond is flawed. But you are asserting exactly that, I retorted, and my tone quavered faintly on the emphasis, a pathetic quiver. You're admitting a desire for someone besides me, seeking my endorsement. What I'm expressing is a reluctance to shatter what we have. He fired back swiftly. I'm aiming for honesty. I fixed on the glass, viewing our outlines layered over the shadows, a pair in a generic space that might belong to anyone. His receding hair, my tied-back locks, the cocoa streak on my cuff, the most mundane treachery unfolding subtly, like a minor incision. This offends me, I stated, and it's repulsive, to be honest. He recoiled, then composed himself. I figured you'd lose it. You requested I endorse my own degradation. I shot. Well done, I'm furious. Naturally, tensions mounted. Such dialogues inevitably sharpen into barbs. He claimed I'd transformed since the children arrived. Constantly overwhelmed by contact, our closeness turned predictable. I countered that predictability bore a title. Parenting, and perhaps if he occasionally grabbed the shopping haul, we'd both muster more vigor for the mattress we collapsed onto like the exhausted. He say I figured he was just aiming for straightforwardness. I countered that real straightforwardness would have been admitting, I'm having a tough time, not suggesting he hook up with some random person as a birthday gift. Things wrapped up like they often do for us, with me in tears in the laundry area, perched on the dryer, since its whir is strong enough to drown out everything. He appeared in the entrance, resting his hand on the door jamb. Sorry, he murmured. Stupid suggestion. Midlife jitters messing with my head. Pretend I never brought it up. I didn't utter that it was already out there. I didn't mention how I couldn't erase the knowledge of his desire for it. I just nodded, signaling a truce. He tossed and turned all night. I sensed it through the bed, the way the springs relayed his unease like a coded message. Around 2 a.m., I slipped downstairs for a drink and lingered in the shadowy kitchen, pressing my hand to the chilly countertop, attuned to the subtle rhythms of the home. The fridge's hum, the air conditioner's drone, the faint stirrings of daily existence. I attempted to envision his fleeting fantasy, but it wouldn't stay abstract. My thoughts lined up images of women in our shared circle, playdate moms from the pickup line, the coffee shop worker who sketches foam art with leaves in my latte, my closest pal Claire, who'd swung by that afternoon bearing a dessert and a quip about joining the senior squad. I shoved the idea away so fiercely that my jaw throbbed. He said sorry once more at dawn. He handled the morning school run, returned bearing chilled brews, brushed a kiss to my forehead. He explained it as a misguided quip, born from anxiety over hitting 40, inspired by some idiotic piece on sparking novelty that had lodged in his brain. That's not who I am, he insisted, locking gazes with me. I truly wanted to trust his words. Trusting beat the hassle of reshaping our whole routine. So I replied, all right. A word that could signal absolution or mere weariness. For several days, we navigated the tender area cautiously, like skirting a tender spot on skin. He led the little ones on cycling outings. I tackled the entryway storage in an impulsive clear-out I couldn't rationalize, hauling donations to the thrift shop 3 times. We got the overdue reads back to the library promptly. I whipped up baked goods. The routine chores kept flowing, and I allowed them to sweep me along like a gentle current. On the actual day of his birthday, the children and I strung up a handmade streamer over the threshold. Happy 40, in puffy script, the final digit dotted with festive speckles. Claire arrived around 6 p.m., carrying a pastry carton and a wax figurine twisted into a query mark. Claire's been my ride or die since our first college mixer. A pair of gals in matching crisp kicks, teamed up for a getting-to-know-you game because our surnames placed us neighbors alphabetically. She remembers my go-to brew, my elementary school instructor's moniker, the silly remark I dropped at our rehearsal feast that still draws a grimace from me. We've witnessed one another's highs and lows, the flu-ridden slumps, the victories, the dull stretches, the tight finances. She enveloped me in an embrace amid the kitchen clutter, murmuring, "Holding up," in that intimate buddy rhythm. I gripped her fingers, letting the pressure convey a dozen unspoken layers, and whispered, "I will." The night unfolded with a touch of warmth. Post-dessert, Claire scrubbed the dishes as I directed the kids to bedtime routines. She ribbed him about turning Big 4-0. He feigned annoyance with the exaggerated scowl of someone who secretly savors his special day. As she departed, she pecked my face and promised a follow-up on the PTA volunteer list. I observed her car's rear lights fade into the night and appreciated that steady anchor of a confidant familiar with your everyday nooks. We settled the youngsters in, and he paused at their bedroom entrance, gazing at their peaceful features as if yearning to shrink down and nestle into their uncomplicated world. He appeared wearier than earlier. Perhaps the flickering glow or the truthful play of darkness. "Solid day," he noted. It was, I agreed, permitting myself the notion that we'd skirted beyond the foolish request. 48 hours on, during Monday's quiet afternoon rest period, I was settling the TV statement in that delicate hush you hesitate to disturb. That's when I spotted it. A waiting transaction on the credit line from the downtown Marriott. The spot with those transparent lifts that leave you dizzy. From 2 evenings prior, a sum that parched my throat. I convinced myself it was an error. Maybe a duplicate from a business meal, or a deposit for a scrapped gathering. Nothing thrilling. I double-checked the account access, then scanned his inbox. A habit we've shared for years during drives or bedtime battles with the offspring. The query field waited expectantly. I entered Marriott. An affirmation appeared, courteous yet incriminating. Booking verified. Single evening, royal suite. His full name, his private account. The arrival matching 2 days post-celebration. The message had been rerouted to a different contact. My gut identified it ahead of my sight. Claire. For an instant, my frame blanked on basic functions. I prompted myself to breathe. The pointer lingered above the expand icon for the exchange. Upon tapping, reality funneled into a slim, glaring passage. "You positive." From her. On his birthday night via mobile. No caps. That signature emoji I know well. Suite booked in my name. Original scheme. Him. Got it. What hour? Her. A brief cascade of arrangements. The sort of those self-deprecating words you mutter, steering straight into disaster. I rose abruptly, and the space around me swayed slightly. The dishwasher droned on in the background. I'd filled it just an hour earlier. Its steady buzz swelled into a thunderous din. Leaning against the sink, palms pressed to the edge, I gazed out at the rear yard, hoping the lawn might somehow disprove the nightmare. A squirrel scampered in its typical erratic way along the fence. In the distance, a leaf blower assaulted the breeze. Grabbing my cell, I sank to the floor beside the pantry, the spot where the children tuck away during our hide-and-seek games. I scanned the message chain once more, wishing a fresh read would expose it as some joke, a fabricated video trick, or a delusion born from exhaustion. My trembling fingers caused the screen's glow to flicker low. He arrived home at 6:40 that evening, coat draped over one arm, necktie already loosened. The children rushed him with their usual enthusiasm, and in that instant, a wild, guilty urge surged through me to shield them from his touch with those very hands. I loathed that impulse. I loathed him for planting it there. "Hey," he ventured cautiously, instantly gauging my expression. He's skilled at deciphering displays, data, atmospheres, just like me. He placed his briefcase down with deliberate care. "What's the matter?" I lifted the phone. "Why did you reserve a hotel for Saturday evening?" I inquired, my tone even, like the deceptive calm of ice over deep water. And why send the booking details to Claire? He froze completely. My spouse is a man of words. Conversation is his trade. So the ensuing silence hit like a blackout. It's not, he started, then paused. It's not like you're imagining. And what exactly am I imagining? I replied. Since it seems you sought my approval to betray me, I refused, and you went ahead regardless. With my closest confidant, we simply... He gestured vaguely, searching, but the right term eluded any language. I reserved it as an experiment, to gauge the sensation. I didn't. Don't, I cut in, and the edge in my words must have jolted him, as he recoiled like an animal sensing a live wire for the first time. Don't demean me by labeling it a mental exercise. Why forward it to Claire? His features twisted and relaxed, like blinds rattling in high winds. He gulped. We'd been messaging, he admitted, avoiding my gaze. It was idiotic. I was idiotic. Did you sleep with her? I demanded, the universe narrowing to his reply. He gave the faintest dip of his head. Once, he murmured, as though rarity might soften the blow. It signified nothing. I collapsed into a chair before my legs buckled. The dishwasher continued its indifferent whir. From above, the kids shouted, "Mom, dessert time." And I pivoted toward the noise as if submerged, where sounds warped strangely. He advanced a pace. "Please," he pleaded. "Let's discuss this," I countered. "No." "What?" "Leave," I insisted, raising my volume. "Pack a suitcase, head to a motel, vanish to oblivion. I don't mind, but exit this home immediately before words escape me that I can't retract around our little ones." He deployed that disarming tactic of his, the one relying on charisma to mend fractures. Voice gentling, hands extended. "We need to converse. We'll speak when I won't shatter in the process," I stated, startled by my own composure. "Not tonight." He lingered a moment, lips shaping silent phrases before dissolving. Then he inclined his head, like a defendant conceding to judgment. Upstairs he went, treading softly, as one does in the dark to avoid rousing a dozing tot. I tracked the sounds, cabinets sliding shut, a suitcase zipper rasping, the subdued rustle of belongings gathered. Midway, the children bounded downstairs and tumbled into my lap on the tiles, limbs flailing with eager anticipation. "Dessert," the youngest queried, eyes sparkling brightly. "2 strawberries apiece," I declared, since boundaries provide stability. I pressed kisses to their crowns. Scents of infant soap, graphite dust, and playground earth lingered faintly. He descended carrying the luggage, pecking their heads without a glance my way. The front door swung open, then shut, and the home reshaped itself in the void he left. Once I'd settled them for sleep, extended tale, duo of lullabies, a single adjusted penalty, I perched at the dining table amid shadows, clasping my fingers as if consoling a stranger. My mind wandered to the veranda rocker, our synchronized mail slots, the festive paper sign still askew in the entry with its playful numeral 0. I recalled the version of myself from 2 evenings prior, stationed here in this very space, brimming with fortune. Beyond, a locomotive exhaled a weary breath before surging forward. I retrieved my device, launched a fresh memo, and jotted 3 consecutive lines, not for a checklist, but to affirm my resolve in committing to action. 1. Contact an attorney. 2. Instruct Claire to stay away. 3. Maintain the children's daily rhythm unbroken. Afterward, I flipped the phone over, rose, and cleaned the pair of berries abandoned on the surface. I devoured them by hand, bite by bite, savoring the tartness mingled with sweetness. The verdant tops. I flushed into the drain, flipped the lever, and heard the grinder transform them into oblivion. When I at last headed upstairs, the home remained unchanged. The corridor was that familiar dim passage, lit by the nightlight's glow. At the entrance to our room, I paused. His section of the mattress was disturbed from where he'd tugged the covers, an imprint like a spectral form. I lingered there, reflecting. Tonight marks the shift in the narrative's time frame. Then I slipped under the blankets on my side, pressed my cheek against the chilled spot on the pillow, and gazed at the clock's glowing digits until they smeared, duplicated, and lost all sense. Sleep evaded me, yet I held together. For the moment. The day following his eviction, the residents acted as if all was normal. The percolator hummed away. The feline hurled herself against the cupboard because she instinctively locates the stash of goodies. The children shuffled downstairs in their onesie sleepers, locks tousled like shocked weeds. Habit laid its soothing grip on my arms and guided me onward. Porridge. Overdue book from the library. Where'd I put my running shoes? Stop slurping from the dish like a dog, please. I assembled school meals with the detached poise of an actor on a replica of her existence. I jotted a reminder, cheese instead of apple, on a sticky note, and affixed it to the surface to convince my mind I was reliable. As I secured the kids in their seats in the vehicle, the 7-year-old glanced upward. "Is Dad still at the hotel?" he inquired, as if we'd arranged a trip excluding him. "He's crashing at your grandparents' place temporarily," I replied steadily. "Adult matters to resolve. You're secure. Everything's fine." He bobbed his head deliberately. The younger one wondered if that allowed for double bedtime reads. I agreed. At times, honesty arrives in tiny, adjustable slices. Returning inside, I fired up my computer and entered Family Attorney nearby, with fingers quivering slightly, distorting the keys into unfamiliar shapes. I selected the practice with the most straightforward site. Nothing flashy, no gavel icons, no flashy assurances in ornate lettering, just a straightforward layout and the line. "We'll outline your choices." I dialed. A secretary with a tone like a cozy sweater scheduled a session for later that day. Prior to the meeting, the chime sounded. I recognized the visitor without viewing the feed. Claire, clad in a hoodie and yoga pants, ponytail askew and elevated, gaze already misty. She clutched a plastic container, as though sweets might span the chasm she'd scorched. Initially, I didn't unlock the entrance. We lingered on opposite sides of the insulated pane, our breath-fogged images nearly touching. She silently formed my name. I let her in, unwilling to let the exchange spill into the community forum by dragging it curbside. "I beg you," she pleaded, stumbling into the entryway. "Allow me to speak." Her fabric softener's scent washed over me, zesty with a hint of luxury. I eyed the container. "Is that baked goods?" A choked chuckle escaped her, more weep than mirth. "Brownies." I wasn't sure what other offering to make. "You might have restored my world instead," I stated evenly, stating the obvious. We settled at the dining table, the spot for settling accounts, plotting nursery parties, and blending a punch that left a subtle rosy scar on the surface. She launched into words rapidly, the frantic pace of one dreading the void post-admission. She explained he'd vented to her about the children, the daily grind, sensing erasure. She claimed she'd urged him to discuss it with me. She mentioned he'd probed if I could possibly relax the boundaries. She admitted dismissing it with humor at first, until the levity faded. "He convinced me you were warming to the idea," she confessed, fixated on her fingers. "He claimed you'd hinted at possibly." I forced down a bitter edge. "So he deceived us equally." I realized that. She dipped her chin vigorously, strands slipping from their clips. Or rather, I'm uncertain. I was fully grown. I chose poorly. I selected the most ruinous path. Her inhale faltered. "I despise who I've become. I'll loathe it for years." "Fine," I responded, mercy absent from my core. She shared details I hadn't sought. The messages, the dread of proceeding toward doom yet persisting, the bland lodging that mirrored every anonymous stay she'd known. how she'd nearly retreated in the lift but pressed on. Just that single occasion, she insisted repeatedly, and I recognized immediately the destruction of my life's finest elements. Your blaze consumed more than your own, I countered. I understand. She crumpled inward, and briefly in a bizarre flash, I recalled styling her tresses in the chapel restroom on my nuptial morning as she balanced on her toes for the view. I banished the image like dissipating vapor. What crossed your mind? The query emerged unfiltered. I anticipated no reply that would console. She offered a flurry that fell short. Isolation, a split that had emptied her. The foolish allure of desire from one who grasped your every secret, sharing the home with your spare hygiene tools. None rang true as amends I could embrace. Should I declare myself monstrous? She ventured eventually, fury flickering beneath the sobs, for resentment naturally shields the void. Yes, I did something awful. I reclined in the chair, feeling it rock back onto its rear legs before thudding down again. I need you to go, and I need you to stay away for good, I told her. She gazed at me, stunned. I'd supported her softly during splits, botched hair colors, a relocation that drained her savings, her mom's illness, and that chaotic week when her heating system burst and ruined her computer. Our bond spanned years of compassion, stitched together like a patchwork blanket. Now, she regarded me as if I'd slashed it with a blade. All right, she murmured, if that's your wish. It is, I replied firmly. It's essential for me. She placed the plastic container on the table, then, aware of the ridiculousness, clutched it close to her chest like armor. I'm truly sorry, she added, the phrase sounding threadbare, polish smooth from overuse. She headed to the exit. Pausing at the doorway, she pivoted. If you ever... The thought trailed off unfinished. She lacked a term for the unfamiliar territory beyond this moment. So did I. Once she'd left, the home seemed to sigh in relief. I covered my face with my palms until bursts of light danced in the blackness. By 2:00, I headed to the attorney's office. The heavens held that faded North Carolina sky, as if scrubbed clean one too many times. The firm occupied the upper level of a red brick structure, cohabited by an accountant and a yoga class space, with neutral flooring and mounted paintings of vessels at sea. The attorney, around my age, had tidy locks and a soothing tone. She requested the details. I delivered them in clear segments, composed and straightforward, much like listing ailments for a doctor. She showed no shock or sighs. Instead, she jotted down points. There are choices available, she noted. We could pursue a formal split, initiate asset reviews, seek interim rulings on parenting and finances. No rush to settle it all now. I exhaled deeply. She broke down the equations of my existence like an instructor at a board. Earning differences, duration of union, local guidelines for childcare, the strong chance of short-term alimony, payment schedules for kids, all the terminology of dissolution outlined neatly. She never downplayed my hurt. Rather, she shaped it into strategy. Record it all, she advised kindly. Archive messages and chats. Begin a record of interactions. Stick to facts. Avoid drawn-out heartfelt discussions via phone. Center on the youngsters. I agreed, scribbling record journal on a fresh notepad's opening sheet, emphasizing it doubly. Returning to the vehicle, my fingers trembled so intensely I paused, clutching the wheel, brow against the supple hide. It wasn't sorrow precisely. More the tremor of venturing onto an unplanned path and discovering solid earth beneath you. That evening, he messaged inquiring about video calling the children. Absolutely, I responded. He connected, and their cheerful expressions lit the display, with missing teeth and dairy smears on lips, sharing tales of the quiz on words and the adjacent pet-devouring footwear. As they dashed off to fetch the item for demonstration, he queried if we might converse soon. Tomorrow, I stated. I consulted an attorney today. He paused, fluttering his lids. the sole sign I could always decipher. "Understood," he murmured gently. "Understood." My rest came in fragments. With each awakening, the residence felt altered in the shadows, as though it had shifted subtly overnight. As daybreak arrived, I set out jogging. No forethought, shoes tied by habit. The dead-end street curved onto pavement, leading by flowering trees and waste containers, and a youngster practicing his wobbly two-wheeler. The atmosphere hung moist, mild like a palm pressing my spine. The exertion stung beneficially. Chest heaving, limbs settling into a cadence beyond the mind's reach. Upon returning, I replied to a pair of work inquiries, laundered a batch of linens, tossed the toddler's plush animal into the tumbler after its plunge into the lavatory sparked tears. Everyday chores intertwined with judicial matters throughout the hours. I created a dossier on the surface, marked separation in bold ink, filing bills, and account duplicates within. I phoned my folks, followed by his. Mom wept softly. Dad vowed to mind the little ones come weekend, granting me space to recover. His mom attempted to spread fault like appetizers. Politely, I countered that this wasn't communal fare and disconnected. He arrived around 6:30, bearing the children's preferred dairy treat and a trio of green fruits, as if remorse could hold a feel. He lingered in the entryway, hesitant to enter further, like dodging a hidden trigger. "I'll wait outside till they're set," he offered, gaze fixed on the wall photo behind me. Shoreline 2019, bronze skin and grins. He hadn't met my eyes since the lodging messages, fearing a straight look would pull us under. "You can assist with washing up," I suggested, since, truth be told, we shared parenting duties, and the kids skidded like young sea mammals on the slick floor each night. Surprise crossed his face, then relief, quickly shadowed by guilt for appreciating mere suds in a toy vessel. We navigated one another clumsily, cautious as post-quake survivors, wary of falling fixtures. He maintained his tone. He moved with care, his movements deliberate and unhurried. He avoided any contact with me. Once we'd settled on the sleepwear options and the child insisted on socks beneath the pajamas, that worked. Pajamas over socks it was. In his calm, deep voice, he read a pair of stories, the kind that always conjured images of him voicing audiobooks in an alternate existence. From the threshold, I observed his fingers flipping through the pages, and sorrow groaned inside me like hinges straining on an old frame. With the children settled, we retreated to the kitchen, treating it as shared territory. He rested against the countertop, hands pressed down firmly. "I'm sorry," he murmured, the sincerity evident in how a guy delivers regret when every possible path for it has burned away. "Truly, I am." "I get it," I replied. He dipped his head, acknowledging that words alone couldn't heal it. "I've scheduled sessions with a counselor," he continued. "Perhaps it's overdue or misses the mark entirely, but I have to examine my path to this point." "All right," I responded. My role wasn't to cheer him on. He inquired about the attorney's advice. I outlined the basics, the interim custody arrangement, the monetary statements I'd soon submit. His eyelids shut briefly, as if steeling against an incoming surge. "I have no desire to battle you," he stated. "I just want to handle things properly for the children." "Then make it happen," I urged. "Arrive punctually, clear-headed, engaged, and never force me into deciding between shielding them and treating you justly." He agreed with a nod. "Could I pick them up after classes tomorrow? The park sounds good." "Sure," I said, "from 5 to 7. He eyed the timepiece, then the magnetic board listing weekly meals and soccer sessions. "I'll message when I'm heading over." As he departed, the outdoor lamp stretched his silhouette far over the lawn. I lingered by the entrance, palm against the frame still holding the day's warmth, recalling countless mornings I'd seen him off to the office, workouts, or outings with buddies. Departing feels straightforward until it doesn't. By week's close, we'd fallen into a routine I hadn't selected but could endure. Tuesday brought ice cream outings, bringing back the kids buzzing with sugar and grins. I conferred with the attorney once more, inking documents I'd never foreseen. He relocated to a compact apartment close to the trail. I marked the children's overnight bags with dads in permanent ink, reminiscent of camp labels. I launched a spreadsheet to regain some command over my schedule. Friday, post drop-off at school, I parked in the lot of a nearby chapel and wept fiercely enough to rest my brow on the dash. Afterward, I cleaned up, returned home, and jotted a shopping list since we lacked detergent, fruit, and those crisps that prevent chaos during the late afternoon frenzy. I messaged the parents' chat from the class, not Claire's group, another circle, and requested additional ride shares for the month. Replies flooded in within 60 minutes. Icons, available windows, and one discreet $50 transfer for pizza evenings. Sunday saw my folks preparing a hearty roast, nourishing us until the little ones grew drowsy, content, and pliant. On the sofa, Mom stroked my hair like she had at age 11 while I read Little Women till the words swam. Dad tackled the cleanup with vigorous clatters, his frustration evident in a father's futile urge to fix it all. He patted his hands dry and placed them on my arms. "You don't need to summon courage constantly," he advised. "One moment at a time suffices." That evening, amid the home's hush, I perched at the table with the separation file splayed out, surrounded by the children's artwork like a vibrant flood. I penned fresh promises, modest ones mostly, akin to pebbles carried close. Rest well, stay hydrated, respond just to essentials. Avoid scrolling through others' images, accept aid when extended, decline when instinct warns, chuckle at the feline antics, splurge on quality brew. I rose, brewed some tea, and carried it to the veranda rocker we'd vowed to enjoy nightly. The seat felt chilly against my legs. A moth battered the bulb before fluttering off, wiser now. Blocks away, a scrape of bristles on grate signaled barbecuing. Existence persists in its familiarity, utterly transformed. I swayed, drank deeply, attuned to the night's rhythm. A distant locomotive rumbled, the chain groaned. My spirit echoed it, easing old fastenings, carving space. Within, on the surface, my journal remained unfurled. At the head, "Tomorrow contact the go-between." Below, "This isn't your conclusion." The sheets stirred as the cooler hummed to life. I let it lie, as though the residence itself might absorb the words. The initial weeks post-submission blurred into errands and pangs. Divorce unfolds not as a single blow, but countless sharp fragments. The shared funds now read as in process. The postbox brimmed with mail addressed singly to each of us, no longer unified. Dishes in the washer seemed alien side by side. The session occurred in a sterile meeting space at a city center office, adorned with tacky prints. One depicted waves. Tissues sat untouched in their container. We needed a spacious round table to keep some space between us. He positioned himself opposite me, his tie slightly askew, gaze locked on a point just beyond my left shoulder. The mediator, a calm woman clutching a notepad, outlined the process. We'd tackle issues sequentially: custody arrangements, money matters, assets. Courtesy governed our exchanges, with our children's well-being hovering unseen between us like a delicate ornament. We negotiated a visitation plan, swapping weekends, midweek dinners on Wednesdays, and evening check-in calls before lights out. We settled on support payments for the kids and shared responsibility for healthcare expenses. Every nod or affirmation from him carried a weight of weariness. My responses were soft, echoing the same fatigue. As we departed, we resembled weary travelers who'd endured a long layover, drained, civil, heading separate ways. At home, the children adapted in that resilient, patchy, gut-wrenching kid fashion. They began referring to his place as Dad's house, and ours simply as home, no nudging required from me. In their colorful drawings of family scenes, they sketched dual kitchens. Occasionally, the youngest wondered aloud if I'd ever claim a dad house of my own. I'd grin and reply, "This setup works for us right now." I constructed daily habits like sturdy frameworks. Jogs at dawn, school runs, office time, after-school treats, evening baths, and tails at tuck-in. On kid-free days, I'd draft pieces for customers amid cafe buzz until my computer powered down, then stroll the wooded path to watch the river flow. Therapy sessions kicked off on Thursdays, that dedicated hour feeling like a hidden sanctuary. My counselor guided me through the knot of remorse, resentment, and those faint strands of ease I hesitated to acknowledge. Being a solid parent doesn't demand perfection, she noted one session. I jotted it down on a sticky note and pinned it by my workspace. Challenges arose, of course, evenings when the little ones returned irritable and oversugared, testing my temper. Dawn spent doom-scrolling his updated online presence despite knowing better. A negotiation meeting that devolved into a spate over a minor festive detail, leaving me in tears in the lot outside. Recovery, I discovered, resembles a winding path more than steady steps. You loop around familiar vistas, yet ascend a bit each pass. But triumphs emerge too. The afternoon I caught myself dwelling not at all on their shared moments in that lodging. The breakfast where my eldest snorted milk from laughter, and my instinct was to join in, rather than eye the vacant seat. The message from a project lead boosting my fee. The inaugural evening on the veranda rocker post-bedtime, where exhaustion mingled with serenity. Grandma visited regularly, offering her serene reliability. She'd sort clothes as I prepared meals, tuck treats into the children's hands, and share tales of enduring tough stretches. "Just keep stepping forward," she'd advise. "Before long, you'll have traversed the road." Come spring, the kitchen wall calendar became a mosaic of class activities, his collection slots, my due dates, plus a fresh entry, our solo getaway to Asheville with the kids. We trekked to a cascade, devoured flapjacks outsizing our dishes, and fashioned a sheet canopy in the suite. As they dozed beneath it, features relaxed and trusting, I perched on the mattress edge and grasped that I no longer pined for the past life. A fresh chapter was unfolding. On the return drive, peaks fading in the mirror, the youngest queried if this signaled our full recovery. "We're improving," I told him. "That's a shift." He bobbed his head gravely, then inquired about flapjacks for supper. Pulling into the lane, the swing swayed gently in the wind. I turned the key, hauled the travel sack inside, and sensed the dwelling breathe easy with us. It remained incomplete, as did we, but it belonged to us. By the following summer post-split, the pain had softened sufficiently for clear thoughts. The children and I had settled into a groove. Classes, jobs, exchanges with their father, little customs weaving our routine. Evenings, once they slumbered, I'd settle at the dining table with my device and the fridge's low drone, focusing on tasks. Not to cram the void, but since professional pursuits were the sole area expanding with my effort. Opportunities multiplied. Referrals and pieces I'd penned on independent work drew gigs from a family blog, a modest firm in tech, a charity group. Bills increased in size, intervals shrank. I ceased viewing myself as a striver and began presenting at parent gatherings as an author. The initial occasion, I braced for raised brows. None appeared. On evenings alone, I signed up for yoga at the local rec hall. Early sessions left me trembling in each stance, thoughts whirlwind. Yet after a few weeks, I balanced in tree without sway. Rooted there, limbs extended, fixated on a wall mark, a subtle steadiness sparked, not merely physically, but across my world. I compiled a roster of modest goals I aimed to. I finally got around to all those things I'd been putting off forever, refreshing the living room walls, setting up a tomato patch, heading out for a family camping trip, catching some live tunes once more. I checked them off my list steadily. The rooms took on a gentle gray hue. Those tomato vines claimed a whole section of the garden. The children crashed under the night sky at a nearby state park, faces smeared with gooey marshmallows. On a weekend without the little ones, I joined a couple of gals from yoga at a blues venue, the deep bass vibrating through my chest, and I chuckled so hard my face ached. Sessions with my counselor made a difference as well. Week by week, she and I delved into yet another layer. My automatic urge to say sorry for every little thing. The embarrassment that surged whenever folks lent a hand. The routine of always ranking myself dead last. One midweek chat, she remarked, "You're no longer merely getting by, you're constructing something new." I jotted that down in my journal. Constructing, co-parenting started smoothing out too. He arrived for his visits pretty much punctually. The kids shared tales from Dad's place without any strain. At handoffs, we'd sometimes stick to just the essentials. Other times, he'd murmur a soft thanks for the spare outfits or paperwork I passed along. It didn't mean pardon, but it worked. Come fall, as the path's foliage burst into crimson and amber, I noticed entire days slipping by without reliving that fateful hotel evening. My thoughts turned instead to a seaside getaway, a larger gig with a publication, a savings buffer covering 3 full months of costs. I snagged a used bicycle and pedaled alongside the children on lazy Sunday outings. We stumbled upon a shop offering baking workshops for kids, and each Thursday, they'd return dusted in flour, beaming over their homemade breads like masterpieces. One twilight, as I rocked on the front porch glider watching them romp in the grass, I pulled out my computer and submitted for a New York writing residency I'd previously dismissed as only for pros. I added my samples, clicked submit, and lingered there with the laptop's light warming my lap, sensing not like a fraud, but like a person moving forward. The home remained that modest spot. The glider still groaned softly. Yet the atmosphere encircling me had shifted. No longer hollow or anticipatory, but open. Room to create, room to mend, room to shape my future self. The message arrived on a drizzly Tuesday amid wiping peanut butter smudges from the refrigerator door. Header: "Congratulations on your fellowship selection." At first, I figured it was junk. Then I clicked through and sank to the kitchen tiles, sponge dripping in my grip. I'd landed the New York writing residency. 30 days of compensated focus on my personal manuscript, along with guidance and a modest stipend. The children were in class. The cat dozed atop a heap of clothes. I huddled there, knees to chest, mixing sobs with giggles into my shirt. It went beyond a credential. It was validation from beyond my tight-knit world. "We recognize you. We trust in you." Sorting the details proved tricky. I lined up my folks to assist with childcare, synced with their father on longer stays, gathered my pads and device. At the platform, Grandma slipped a 20 into my hand, echoing years past. "Treat yourself to a little indulgence," she urged. November in New York carried scents of toasted almonds and damp pavement. The program assigned me a workstation in an airy attic studio, complete with vast panes and a gurgling heater like a breathing entity. Nearby sat fellow authors, verse makers, reporters, storytellers, each deep in their pursuits. That initial dawn, I settled in, launched a fresh file, and typed. Chapter 1, "The Way a Union Crumbles and a Fresh Existence Emerges." The sentences flowed gradually but reliably. By month's close, I'd drafted 50 pages. Returning home, the kids greeted me at the depot with a handmade banner reading, "Welcome back, Mom," all sparkly with craft glue. My eldest leaned in and asked softly, "Did you finish your story?" I replied, "I got it underway." His smile lit up as if that sufficed. Opportunities expanded from that point. The residency sparked fresh assignments, followed by talks on independent work and bouncing back. I launched a virtual course for fellow caregivers, aiming to craft writing paths remotely. My earnings outpaced what my ex and I had pooled before. After ages, I wasn't only covering costs, I was stashing away. Our shared parenting dynamic eased further. He stayed in his place, holding down his financial role, but the edge between us softened. Exchanges happened via messages on logistics and assignments. Yet at a recital one evening, he bent close and whispered, "You're handling things well for them." I dipped my head. No regrets voiced, but a hint of courtesy, which I accepted. On a quiet Friday after bedtime, I perched on the glider with herbal tea, flipping through the residency draft. The book wasn't complete, yet it felt tangible. A form was taking hold, not vengeance-fueled, but one of endurance. My endurance. Theirs too. I reflected on the me who'd once perched here, dazed by deceit, tallying expenses and routines. She couldn't have fathomed she'd end up here, more composed, more resilient, crafting a world from her own voice. I longed to return and whisper to her, "Hang in there, things improve, you improve." A gentle wind stirred the sheets, fluttering them like soft plumes. I pressed my hand to secure them and inhaled the crisp evening breeze. For the first time, tomorrow didn't seem like a burden to dread or simply withstand. It seemed like a path I was already treading, one purposeful stride at a time. When the manuscript for the book was complete, fully 2 years had elapsed since that evening in the kitchen, when he requested a hall pass. Early on, I tracked time through the divide of before and after. Now that incident lingered in the rear view, like a distant marker you spot on the horizon, but no longer rely on for direction. The children had grown taller, limbs slender as young trees, tones deepening. They continued to refer to our home as theirs without a second thought. They still slipped under my covers on Saturday mornings with chilly feet and bits of toast crumbling everywhere. They had established their own flow with their father as well. Dinners on Wednesdays, alternating weekends at his place close to the Greenway. They ceased wondering when we'd reunite as a family and began sharing details of school experiments and private laughs from his home. That marked a unique form of recovery. My career had evolved into my true purpose. The fellowship opened doors to a publishing contract. The book sparked invites to speak at gatherings and local venues. I positioned myself behind lecterns and shared with crowds of unfamiliar faces. You're not the antagonist in another person's tale, and observed how their expressions shifted, as though light had streamed through a pane. Occasionally, I'd notice a woman in the third row clutching her hand over her lips, and I'd reflect, I recognize you. I used to be you. Back at the house, the porch swing turned into our cherished routine. We'd gather there post-meal, the children tackling assignments at the kitchen table, me sipping chamomile tea. Now and then, Grandma would drop by, as reliable as ever, carrying her signature Chilean calendar adorned with hummingbirds. She'd tap my leg and quip, "Seatbelt out of habit," prompting shared chuckles. The words had morphed into our code for security, for being fastened tight. You're safe. He and I finally met in a serene cafe and inked the concluding documents. No theatrics, no banging doors, just two individuals closing out a segment they had vowed would last forever. He expressed regret once more, this time minus any justifications. I heard him out, not out of necessity, but because it was his burden to shoulder. We discussed the children, logistics, ways to manage celebrations. We avoided dwelling on history. It wasn't amending, but it was closure. On the day the divorce papers arrived by post, I whipped up pancakes for supper, just as the kids had requested during our Asheville getaway. We dined at the table with its uneven cake platter and the scattered crayons from their studies. Later, I settled on the porch swing with my computer and launched a fresh file. The blinking cursor waited steadily as I began to type. This isn't a tale of what was taken. This is a tale of construction. I glanced around my modest dwelling, the neutral walls I'd coated on my own, the tomato vines stretching across the garden, the pile of drafts atop the counter. The existence I inhabited now wasn't the future I'd envisioned, but it belonged to me entirely. Assembled piece by piece from decisions, tough stretches, and quiet delights. The kids emerged with their bowls of frozen treat, settling next to me. "Finished your book yet?" my littlest one inquired. "The first one's wrapped up," I replied. "Perhaps I'll pen a sequel." "What's the theme?" my eldest wondered. I grinned. "About the chapters that unfold once you assume the ending has come." They nestled close, tacky and cozy, and the swing groaned beneath our shared load. The heavens above the cul-de-sac softened to a gentle Carolina rose. In that instant, all seemed routine, yet freshly discovered. I drew in a steady breath and recalled the young woman who once perched on the swing, jotting survival notes. I yearned to assure her, "You're beyond mere endurance now. You're truly thriving." And for the first time in ages, I trusted it fully. Did you enjoy my narrative? And from which city are you tuning in? Let's connect in the comments below. If the story resonated, consider supporting me with a super thanks to help me share more tales like this one. Thank you from the heart for your kind encouragement. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on the story. On your screen, check out 2 Fresh Life accounts that I strongly suggest. My channel holds even more gems. Remember to hit subscribe. Catch you in the next life story. With warmth and appreciation,